Good morning. First of all, thanks to the organization for allowing us to present our work at this event. And thanks also to everyone connected at this time. We are going to talk about the Vegan Street Madrid in a presentation that begins by introducing the project, continue with the development of the theoretical framework of our work, and end showing you the results. Okay, Joaquín, cuando quieras.
Okay. Okay. Vegan Street Madrid is an initiative born from the anti-species feminist cultural association Las Carolas. The name comes from Carol Adams, a social initiative with a clear and intersectional objective: to disseminate and train people attending different events about veganism, anti-speciesism, feminism, and other forms of struggle against discrimination. Las Carolas was chaired by Laura Hermoso from January 2018 to July 2019, and since then by Lourdes Ribagorda until today. Guided by principles of justice and under the framework of the defense of human and animal rights, Las Carolas maintains that in order to understand any kind of oppression towards people, we must deeply understand the oppression we exert towards non-human animals, since all oppressions have common links. The organization of Las Carolas understands that the goal of associationism is vital for the development of a fair, participatory, and collaborative society. From the association Las Carolas, and with the support of other local animalist organizations, the November Anti-Species Collective emerged. The marches on the occasion of the World Vegan Day were held under the Anti-Species November Call. 3 posters from 3N in 2018, 2N in 2019, and finally 2020, November the 1st. Vegan Street Madrid is an intersectional and solidarity meeting with animal sanctuaries, anti-species shelters, and other socially committed organizations. Especially relevant for the dissemination of anti-speciesism, veganism, and feminism were the talks, exhibitions, concerts, and workshops held year after year. The Vegan Street Madrid began in 2017, Vegan Street Madrid, Animal Liberation on the Streets, held in a square in Madrid in the district of Ciudad Lineal. In 2018, we held its second edition, Transversality at the Foot of the Street, given the success of the first edition with a large amount of public. Request a location in a larger space, the open-air auditorium El Carelo Park. In 2019, we held the third edition, also in the auditorium of El Calero Park. Organization and experts who work every day in the dissemination and awareness of respect for human and non-human animals gather to provide a space for communication and open conversation where all attendees could learn and interact horizontally. The fourth edition was postponed due to the pandemic, and this year we have a vegan street in Estonia in this Congress, virtual vegan street. Now we have 2 questions with one of the co-founders of the Vegan Street and Carola's Association. We asked 2 questions. First one is questions answered by Lourdes. Vegan Street Madrid is a non-commercial event for the spreading of the animalist movement, anti-speciesism, and veganism. The protagonists were the animalist associations, sanctuaries, and shelters that in no way would pay to participate. We work hard to offer a space that does not involve any cost to sanctuaries and anti-species shelters, because every euro raised went to animals living in their enclosures, a space of freedom and dignity. The vegan street was held in a public space, but the expenses of the event, for example, liability insurance, were covered by other participants and by activities such as solidarity raffles organized by volunteers. The second question is how to theorize this event, inviting the strong arm of the movement, publishers and fan things. Without them, the vegan street would not exist. In the same space, theory and practice accessible to anyone passing on the street. We are talking about the editorials as 824 or Traficantes de Sueños. This is a map of the event. And this is a poster, and you can see talks, the sanctuaries, editorials, and other projects, even food, vegan food, obviously. And now we will explore the theoretical framework of this research. First one is gender. Different studies argue that meat consumption is linked to masculinity, muscularity, physical and psychological strength, and the rational world. Likewise, it's also affirmed that the use of animals and the consumption of meat are a manifestation of power understood as domination, inequality, oppression, that reflects a way of being in the world or a model of social organization. Women, compared to men, more strongly condemn the use and mistreatment of animals, especially in food and research. They less frequently categorize animals as undesirable beings and feel more comfortable around them. They show a higher level of empathy and emotional attachment to animals and assume more responsibility for the care. And they are more likely to be activists in the animal advocacy movement. In this context, the connection drawn by many Spanish authors like Estela Díaz, Angélica Velasco, or Alicia Puleo between feminism and environmentalism and between sexism and speciesism is not surprising. The next one is relationship with ecologism. In environmental ethics research, it's often assumed that certain natural entities and processes have value in themselves. Value is not merely instrumental. In contrast, animal ethics states that all sentient beings capable of having positive and negative experience, as opposed to non-sentient beings, matter, have moral status or consideration, and must be taken into account in our moral reasoning. For Katia Faria and Efe Paez, for example, the incompatibility lies in the fact that certain conservationist policies to protect environmental systems and processes may entail harm to non-human animals, while the conservation of natural systems under environmental ethics is stronger than the integrity of sentient beings in case of conflict. Now we talk about organizational identity of the sanctuaries and shelters. Intersectionalism affirms that the oppression cannot be understood as the sum of factors from which discrimination is generated. We are talking about race, gender, class in this case, but these oppressions are lived together, interrelated, generating relations of power and domination that are more complex than as the simple sum of oppression. For speciesism, non-human animals lack moral consideration. Most human beings think that other animals are not to be respected as members of our own species. And finally, veganism is only the reprobation of all use of animals and all products resulting from such uses. Vegans are the strictest of all vegetarians, refraining from eating or using all animal-based products. a question about ideal types of sanctuaries. According to Donaldson and Kimlicka, there are two ideal types of sanctuaries, the refugee advocacy model and the intentional community model. The first one is characterized by treating non-human animals as refugees in need of humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, through educational programs, it participates in awareness raising and advocacy activities in various areas, and also in projects focused above all on personal experience that leads to veganism and animal activism. The second one, the intentional community model, is characterized by defending non-human animals are in the best possible position to decipher how they want to live, while the caretakers can fall into preconceived ideas about what they need or want based on supposed norms of a species or acceptable risks, freedoms, and possible modes of personal growth. And finally, we talk about regularity, Spanish regularity framework. In Spain, according to the current regulations, sanctuaries must be registered as an intensive livestock farm. We are aware that the application of this regulation does not apply in any way to the needs of a sanctuary and can even harm the non-human animals that live in them. The damage will come from the activities related to documentation, sanitary requirements, identification, and even public aid that are thought only from the perspective of intensive livestock farms. And now is Alberto time.
Okay, let's talk about the results, okay? Well, first, we asked about gender. As can be seen on the screen, one of the questions of this topic revolves around the particular situation in each sanctuary. It is clear that in most of them, the participation is mainly female. We only got two different, more or less different responses, okay? One to indicate that participation in their sanctuary is equal, and another very interesting to indicate that currently, and I quote, in our assembly, there are not cis men, and among the bulk of volunteers, half are usually women, more than half lesbian, and the other half non-binaries or trans people. Okay. The other question in the gender section, consider whether the administrators of sanctuaries acts agreed or not with the studies that affirm that the percentage of women concerned about animal issues is higher than that of men. The answer for the most part confirmed this idea, and also added something that I quote, no? Despite being much greater the number of women, the visible faces are not usually them. This is a critique, okay? The only discordant answer is to affirm that their sanctuary is not intersectional. You can see that in the bottom of this slide, the complete answer. Next block addresses the relationship with environmentalism. In fact, the first questions ask precisely about the type of relationship that the administrators of the sanctuaries believe that exists between environmentalism and animal ethics. On the screen, the answer. For the most part, as you can see, the relationship depends on the context. Okay. The second question revolves around why they think of environmentalism in relation to sanctuaries. So you can see how the response move away. We think we move away from a certain literature on confrontation, no, between the two movements. And also, we believe that this is intensified if we add several answers from the category other to the category. For some things, they can be helpful, and for others, they can be troublesome, right? Answers that follow the line, but specifying precisely what it can be problematic, more or less. No? For example, answers like they can be allies according to the degree of involvement, or it is difficult sometimes to find alliances to work in common, but totally possible. In the third block, we asked about the identity of the volunteer of each sanctuary. We wanted to know if these are intersectional, anti-speciesist, but with sympathy towards animals or any other category. Most of the responses stated that intersectionality prevail among their volunteers, although diversity of ideas and behaviors is present, right? Next block asks about the sanctuary model. As already mentioned, we follow Donaldson and Kilika model because we consider that it is the most complete if we take account the reality and what it should be. In this question, we believe that presents some doubts about the data on the screen for two reasons. First, we don't know how familiar the various sanctuaries administrators are with the models. And second, the ideal would have been to visit each of the sanctuaries and make a more independent evaluation. But due to COVID-19, it was not possible. It is true, however, that in the respective web pages, many of the sanctuaries define themselves as a place of refuge for non-human animals. So that I think that for some answers is not that helpful, okay? Last but not least, we asked about the existence or not of laws, regional or state level, that somehow favor or at least not torpedo the action of the sanctuaries. Well, we think this graph speaks for itself, but some comments that we receive on this specific issue are, no, we don't exist, or no, there are not even any regulation about us, or they do not favor anything. So that is more or less our presentation. I don't know if we have some time because we have like some inhabitants of the sanctuary, some stories, but maybe it's probably better go to the questions, maybe, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much.